The Great Hall of Orbital Prime was filled with creatures from 100 different worlds. They stood in their assigned sections, each species separated by invisible lines of pride and ancient hatred. Light from a dying star poured through the crystal ceiling, painting everything in shades of orange and gold. This was the heart of the Galactic Union, where the 12 elder races decided the fate of all living things. Ambassador Yuna Choi walked through the center aisle with her head held high. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. For 15 years, she had represented Earth in this place. For 15 years, she had smiled while aliens laughed at her people. Today, her smile was different. Today, it held a secret. Behind her walked Captain Taiho Park, commander of the escort vessel Aegis. He wore his uniform without medals or decorations. His face was calm, almost bored. But his eyes moved constantly, watching everything, recording everything. Beside him was Lieutenant Minho Kong, a young officer who still believed that respect could be earned through words alone. The Velthari delegation stood at the far end of the hall. They were tall creatures, almost 3 meters high, with bodies covered in hard black shells. Their leader, High Commander Drawl, watched the humans approach with 4 compound eyes that showed nothing but contempt. "The soft ones arrive," Drawl said, his voice carrying across the silent hall. "Tell me, Ambassador, have your people learned to build proper ships yet? Or do you still fly in those metal boxes you call vessels?" Laughter rippled through the assembly. The Kreth delegates, ancient beings of living crystal, made sounds like breaking glass. The Morvath, who looked like walking trees, rustled their leaves in amusement. Even the usually quiet Sundari allowed themselves thin smiles. Yuna stopped before the central platform and bowed slightly. "High Commander Drow," she said, her voice steady. "The people of Earth thank you for your concern about our ships. They serve us well enough." "They will not serve you much longer," Droll replied. He stepped forward, and the floor shook slightly under his weight. "The Velthari Dominion claims the human colonies of New Busan, Haven's Rest, and Morning Star. You will surrender these worlds within 30 rotations." The hall fell silent. This was not a request. This was not even a demand. It was a statement of fact, spoken by a species that had never lost a war. Minho's hands formed fists at his sides. Taiho placed a gentle hand on the young man's shoulder, a silent command to remain still. "On what grounds does the Dominion make this claim?" Yuna asked. Drawl made a sound that might have been laughter. "Grounds? We need no grounds. You are a minor species. You have no fleet worthy of the name. You have no weapons that could scratch our smallest transport ship. We take your colonies because we wish to take them, because you cannot stop us. And if we refuse?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Several alien delegates leaned forward, curious to see how the insects would respond to such foolishness. Drawl spread his forearms wide. "Then we will cleanse New Busan first. Every human on that world will die. We will broadcast it across the galaxy so that all may see what happens to those who defy the Dominion." Yuna was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "You would kill 3 million civilians. Women, children, the elderly. We would kill every living thing that carries human blood," Drawl said. "And when we are finished, we will turn their cities into breeding grounds for our young. This is the way of the galaxy, Ambassador. The strong take, the weak give. Your species has been weak since the day you crawled out of your caves." More laughter filled the hall. The Kreth were already preparing their broadcast equipment. The destruction of a human colony would make excellent, entertainment for trillions of viewers. In the observation deck above the main hall, Captain Taiho quietly pulled out a small device and typed a short message. It traveled across space in an instant, reaching Earth in the time it took to draw a breath. "Protocol silence is now authorized." He waited. The seconds felt like hours. Then the reply came, appearing as text on his screen. Confirmed. "Show them nothing yet. Let them come." Taiho put the device away and returned his attention to the scene below. His face showed nothing. His heart beat steady and slow. Ambassador Yuna looked at Drawl with an expression that many would later describe as sad. "The people of Earth will not surrender their colonies," she said. "We will not abandon our citizens to death. If the Dominion wishes war, then war it shall have." Drawl threw back his head and roared with laughter. "War? You call it war? There will be no war, little creature. There will only be extermination. Your species will be a memory within a single generation. Children will ask their parents, 'What were humans?' And their parents will say, 'They were soft things that thought they mattered.'" The assembly erupted in noise. Delegates shouted approval. Some began placing bets on how quickly the human colony would fall. The Morvath offered odds of 10,000 to 1 against human survival. Through it all, Yuna stood motionless. Taiho watched from above. Minho burned with anger he could not release. As they left the hall, Minho finally spoke. "How can you stay so calm? They threatened to murder millions of our people. They laughed at us." Taiho looked at the young officer with something like pity. "Let them laugh," he said. "Let them threaten. Let them believe every word they said. But, Sir Lieutenant, do you know why Earth has never shown its true strength to the galaxy?" Minho shook his head. Taiho smiled, and for just a moment, something cold and ancient flickered in his eyes. "Because the moment we do, everything changes. Every alliance, every treaty, every assumption they have made about the universe. We have been waiting 60 years for a reason good enough." He looked back at the Great Hall, where aliens still celebrated humanity's coming doom. They just gave us one. The Velthari war fleet moved through space like a swarm of metal insects. 200 warships, each one a mountain of weapons and armor. At the center of the formation flew the flagship Eternal Conquest, a dreadnought 3 kilometers long. Its shadow could cover entire cities. High Commander Drawl stood on his command bridge, watching the stars slide past. In 12 hours, his fleet would reach the human colony of New Busan. In 13 hours, that colony would be ash and memory. "Commander," one of his officers called out, "we are receiving signals from observation vessels. The Kreth, the Sindari, and the Morvath have all sent ships to watch the battle." Drawl made a pleased sound. "Good. Let them see. Let the entire galaxy see what happens to species that forget their place." Across the void, the observation ships kept their distance. They were not here to fight. They were here to watch, to record, to broadcast. Trillions of beings across 1,000 worlds had tuned in to see the destruction of humanity's colony. It was the most watched event in galactic history. On New Busan, Governor Ji Soo-yoon stood before a crowd of worried citizens. She was a tall woman with kind eyes and steady hands. Behind her, the twin suns of the system were setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and red. "My friends," she said, her voice carrying through speakers across the city, "the enemy approaches. You have heard their threats. You have seen their fleet," the crowd murmured with fear. 3 million people lived on New Busan. They had built homes here, raised children here, buried their dead here. Now an alien armada was coming to take it all away. "I will not lie to you," Jisoo continued. "I will not tell you that there is nothing to fear. Fear is natural. Fear is human." She paused and looked out at the faces before her. "But I will tell you this. Earth remembers. Earth has not forgotten us, and Earth has prepared." She pointed toward the sky where the first stars were appearing. "Go to your shelters. Stay calm, stay together. And when the morning comes, you will understand why we never needed to be afraid." The crowd began to move, following the directions of calm soldiers who guided them underground. No one panicked. No one screamed. They trusted their governor. They trusted Earth. High above the planet, Admiral Sujin Lee watched the evacuation from the bridge of her ship. The silent mountain was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. From outside, it looked small, only 800 meters long. But appearances were deceiving. Admiral, her second-in-command, reported, "All civilian shelters are at 90% capacity. Underground defense systems are active. The colony is ready." Sujin nodded. She was an old woman now, with white hair and a face marked by decades of service. But her mind was sharp as a blade, and her will was iron. "And our fleet?" she asked. "Get in position, Admiral. 1,200 vessels, hidden in dimensional pockets across the system. They await your command." "Good." Sujin turned to look at the main screen where the Velthari fleet was displayed as a mass of red dots. "Let them come closer. Let them feel confident." Dr. Hoyenbeek stood beside her, holding a tablet filled with data. He was the chief scientist of Project Veil, the most secret program in human history. For 60 years, his team had worked in hidden laboratories, developing technology that would seem like magic to the rest of the galaxy. "Admiral," he said quietly, "are you certain about this? Once we reveal ourselves, there is no going back." Sujin smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Doctor, for 60 years, we have watched these creatures enslave weaker species. We have watched them destroy entire civilizations for sport. We have watched them laugh at the suffering of others." Her eyes grew hard. "We stayed hidden because we wanted to believe they could change. They proved today that they cannot." She turned to face the bridge crew. "All hands, this is Admiral Lee. In a few hours, we will engage the Velthari Dominion. You know your duties. You know what is at stake? Not just our colony, but the future of every oppressed species in this galaxy." She paused, letting her words sink in. "For 60 years, humanity has been called weak. For 60 years, we have been mocked and dismissed. Today, that ends. Today, we show the galaxy what we truly are." On the Velthari flagship, Draal was growing impatient. "How much longer?" he demanded. 4 hours to weapons range, Commander?" "And what of the human defense fleet?" An officer checked his screens. "We detect 47 vessels, Commander. All are small. The largest is 800 meters. They appear to be forming a defensive line in front of the colony." Draal laughed, a harsh sound like metal scraping metal. 47 ships against 200. They are brave, I will give them that. Brave and stupid. Settled back into his command chair and closed his secondary eyes. "Wake me when we are ready to fire. This will not take long." The hours passed. The Velthari fleet drew closer. The galaxy watched with eager eyes, and in the darkness between stars, 1,200 human warships waited in silence. They had waited 60 years for this moment. They could wait a few hours more. On the silent mountain, young Lieutenant Minho Kong stood at his station, hands trembling slightly. He had transferred from the Aegis to join the Admiral's flagship for this battle. Commander Borahan, captain of the stealth destroyer Ghost of Inchen, noticed his nervousness during a video briefing. "First real battle, Lieutenant?" "Yes, Commander," Bora smiled. "Don't worry. By the time the enemy understands what is happening, it will already be over. But there are so many of them. Numbers mean nothing when technology is unequal." Bora leaned closer to the camera. "Lieutenant, I have seen the weapons we carry. I have seen what our shields can do. Believe me when I tell you, the Velthari should be the ones trembling." The Velthari fleet entered weapons range. 200 warships powered up their cannons, each one capable of melting mountains. Admiral Sujin stood. "All ships prepare for protocol silence termination. On my command, we reveal ourselves." She took a deep breath. "For Earth, for humanity. For everyone who was ever told they were too weak to matter." She raised her hand. "Begin." The first Velthari weapons fired at exactly 1400 hours, Galactic Standard Time. 100 plasma cannons, each one powerful enough to crack a moon, released their fury at the small human fleet. On the observation ships, aliens leaned forward in their seats. The Kreth broadcast team prepared to capture the moment of human destruction. Across the galaxy, trillions of beings watched their screens with eager anticipation. The plasma bolts crossed the void in seconds. They struck the lead human vessel, the Silent Mountain. With enough force to vaporize a small asteroid, nothing happened. The shots hit something invisible. A barrier that flickered into existence for just a moment. It shimmered like water touched by sunlight, beautiful and strange. Then it vanished, and the Silent Mountain floated there, untouched, undamaged. Unchanged on his flagship, High Commander Drawl shot upright in his chair. "What is this report?" His officers scrambled at their stations. "Commander, the human ship. It absorbed the strike. All of it. Our weapons did nothing." "Fire again. All ships, fire everything." 200 Velthri warships opened fire at once. The void between the fleets lit up with the light of 1,000 suns. Enough firepower to destroy a planet poured toward the human vessels. Every shot was absorbed. Every blast was swallowed by those shimmering shields. The 47 human ships did not even move. The observation ships fell silent. The Kreth stopped their commentary mid-sentence. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy had nothing to say. Admiral Sujin Lee opened a channel that every ship in the system could hear. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "You have fired upon Earth. You have threatened our people. You have promised to murder our children." She paused. "You will now witness why no human has ever feared you." She gave a single command. "All ships, reveal." Across the system, space itself seemed to tear open. Dimensional pockets, hidden folds in reality that no alien species had ever discovered, suddenly released their contents. Ships poured out of nothing, appearing in perfect formation around the Velthri fleet. Not 47 ships. Not 100. Not even 500, 1,200 human warships surrounded the Velthri Dominion's entire fleet. They were sleek and dark, covered in technology that made no sense to alien eyes. They moved without visible engines, turned without thrusters, and their hulls seemed to drink in light itself. On every observation ship, on every screen across the galaxy, beings stared in disbelief. The humans had hidden a fleet. They had hidden an entire navy for 60 years. Without anyone knowing, Drawl's voice came over the communication channel. And for the first time, it carried something other than contempt. "Not this. This cannot be. How? How did you hide this?" Admiral Sujin answered simply. "You never asked to see what we truly had. You were too busy laughing. We will still destroy you." Drawl shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. "We are the Velthri Dominion. We have conquered 1,000 worlds." "You have conquered the weak," Sujin replied. "You have never faced the strong. Let me show you the difference." The human fleet moved as one. They did not fire beams of light or bolts of plasma. Instead, something far stranger happened. Every Velthri ship suddenly began to slow down. Their engines failed. Their weapons went offline. Their lights flickered and died. On the Ghost of Inchon, Commander Borahan watched her screens with satisfaction. Disruption field at full power. Enemy vessels are losing all power. Lieutenant Minho stared at the data in amazement. "We're not destroying them. We're just turning them off." That is the point, Lieutenant. Any species can destroy. We choose not to." In exactly 4 minutes and 32 seconds, the battle was over. 200 Velthri warships drifted helplessly in space. Their crews were alive, their ships intact, but they could not move, could not fight, could not do anything except float and wait. Admiral Sujin surveyed the battlefield. "Report. All enemy vessels disabled, Admiral. 0 human casualties. 0 enemy fatalities. Their life support systems remain functional. They will survive until rescue arrives." Sujin nodded. "Broadcast to all observation ships. Make sure the galaxy sees this clearly." On the Kreth observation vessel, the lead broadcaster struggled to find words. His kind had witnessed 10,000 battles across 1,000,000 years. They had never seen anything like this. "The human fleet has disabled the entire Velthri armada," he finally managed. "In under 5 minutes? Without killing a single enemy combatant? This is unprecedented." Across the galaxy, the broadcasts continued in stunned silence. On 100 worlds, leaders who had laughed at humanity suddenly felt very cold. On 1,000 stations, military officers began frantically reviewing everything they thought they knew about Earth. High Commander Drawl floated on his powerless bridge, surrounded by darkness. Emergency lights cast red shadows on his shell. His 4 eyes stared at nothing. 60 years, he whispered. They pretended to be weak for 60 years. Why? Why would any species hide such power? A human voice came through his emergency speaker. It was Admiral Sujin. "Because we were watching you, Commander. All of you. We wanted to see what kind of galaxy this was. We wanted to know if the elder races deserved respect or pity." Her voice hardened. "You answered that question today. What happens now?" Droll asked. "Will you kill us? Enslave us, as we have enslaved others?" There was a long pause before the Admiral answered. "Commander, in a few hours, rescue ships will arrive to tow your fleet home. Your crews will be unharmed. Your ships will be returned. You will go back to your dominion and tell them what happened here." "I do not understand." "Why would you show mercy?" "Because Admiral Sujin said, 'We are not you.' We never wanted to rule the galaxy through fear. We only wanted to be left in peace. You made that impossible." Her voice softened slightly. "Go home, Commander. Tell your people that the age of conquest is over. A new era has begun." Onubusan Governor Jizu emerged from her shelter to find the sky peaceful and calm. Around her, 3 million humans looked up at the stars and wept with relief. The battle for New Busan was over, but across the galaxy, something much larger had just begun. Orbital Prime had never been so quiet. The great hall that usually buzzed with arguments and negotiations was silent as a tomb. Every seat was filled. Every elder race had sent their highest leaders. Even the Morvath, who rarely left their forest worlds, had come. They were waiting for the humans. Ambassador Yuna Choi entered through the main doors, and every eye in the hall turned to watch her. She walked the same path she had walked 2 days ago, when aliens had laughed at her people and promised death. But everything was different now. Beside her walked Captain Taiho Park, now dressed in full military uniform with medals she had never seen before. On her other side was Counselor Hannah Shin, Earth's newly appointed military liaison. Hannah was young, barely 30, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what humanity was capable of. No one laughed. No one spoke. No one even moved. Elder Moroth, of the Kreth Consortium, finally broke the silence. He was ancient beyond measure, a being of living crystal who had watched stars be born and die. In all his long existence, he had never felt fear. He felt it now. "Ambassador Choi," he said, his voice like wind chimes. "We have questions." "Expected you would," Yuna replied. She took her place at the central platform and looked out at the assembled aliens. Some could not meet her eyes. "How long?" Morith asked. "How long have you possessed this power?" Counselor Hannah stepped forward. "Since before we joined your union, Earth developed faster than light travel over 400 years ago. We reached the stars while your ancestors were still recording their histories." A ripple of shock passed through the hall. The Sindari delegate, a creature of flowing silver, spoke in a trembling voice. 400 years. But you only made contact with us 60 years ago." "You said you had just discovered space travel." "We lied," Hannah said simply. "We had been watching your galaxy for centuries before we revealed ourselves. We studied your wars. We cataloged your empires. We learned your languages, your cultures, your weaknesses. And then we appeared as a small, harmless species looking for friends." The Morvath elder rustled his leaves in confusion. "But why? Why would you hide such power? With technology like yours, you could have conquered us all." Captain Taiho answered this time. "Conquest was never our goal. We wanted to understand what kind of civilizations we were dealing with. We wanted to know if the galaxy could be trusted with the knowledge that beings like us existed." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We watched the Velthari enslave entire species. We watched the Kreth sell weapons to both sides of every war. We watched the Morvath close their eyes to genocide because it did not affect their worlds." His voice grew cold. "We were waiting to see if any of you deserved peace, or if the galaxy required order." The silence that followed was the deepest the hall had ever known. High Commander Droll was present, though he no longer held his title. The Velthari had recalled him in disgrace. He sat in the back of the hall, his 4 eyes fixed on the humans who had destroyed his pride without killing a single one of his soldiers. "I must know," he said, rising to his feet. "Why did you spare us? We threatened your children. We promised to burn your worlds. Why did you leave us alive?" Yuna looked at him with an expression that was hard to read. "Because we are not you, Commander. You measure strength by how many you can kill. We measure it by how many we choose not to." "That makes no sense," Drawl said. "Mercy is weakness. It has always been weakness." "Has it?" Counselor Hannah asked. "Look around you, Commander. Every species in this hall has fought wars for millennia. You have conquered and been conquered, killed and been killed, in an endless cycle of violence." She spread her hands. "And what has it gotten you? Nothing but more war. More death. More hatred that passes from generation to generation." She stepped closer to the assembly. "Humanity has watched this cycle long enough. We could have entered it at any time. We chose not to. We chose to wait, to watch, to prepare. Not for conquest, but for the moment when we could offer something different." Elder Morath leaned forward. "What are you offering?" Ambassador Yuna answered. "An end to the old ways. A new kind of alliance, where no species is called minor or elder, where disputes are settled through words, not weapons, where the strong protect the weak instead of enslaving them." "And if we refuse?" the Sindari delegate asked. "What then? Will you force us?" Taiho shook his head. "We will not force anyone. That would make us no better than what we hope to replace. If you wish to continue as you always have, that is your choice." His eyes hardened. "But know this. Earth will no longer stand idle while the innocent are murdered. If any species threatens genocide, if any empire tries to enslave the helpless, we will respond. Not with conquest, but with protection." "You would protect species that are not your own?" the Morvath asked in disbelief. "We would protect anyone who cannot protect themselves," Yuna said. "That is what strength is for." The assembly erupted into chaos. Delegates argued among themselves, some in fear, some in anger, some in something that might have been hope. For hours the debates continued. But through it all, the humans stood calm and patient. They had waited 60 years for this moment. They could wait a few hours more. Finally, Elder Moroth raised his crystalline hand for silence. "I have lived longer than most stars. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched countless species reach for greatness and fail." He turned his ancient eyes to the human delegation. "In all that time, I have never seen a species choose mercy when they had the power to destroy. I have never seen strength used for protection rather than domination." He bowed his crystal head, a gesture of respect that no Kreth had ever shown to another species. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "it is time for the galaxy to learn something new." One by one, other delegates began to bow. The Sindari, the Morvath, even some of the Velthari. Not all of them, but enough. Ambassador Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes, though she did not let them fall. For 15 years, she had endured mockery and contempt. For 15 years, she had kept her people's secrets. Now at last the galaxy was beginning to understand. Beside her, Captain Taiho allowed himself a small smile. The first phase was complete. Humanity had revealed its strength. Now came the harder part, teaching the galaxy how to use strength wisely. 1 year had passed since the Battle of New Busan. 1 year since humanity revealed its true face to the galaxy. In that time, everything had changed. The Galactic Union no longer existed. In its place stood the Galactic Compact, a new alliance built on principles that would have seemed impossible just 12 months ago. There were no elder races now, no minor species. Every world had one vote. Every voice mattered. Ambassador Yuna Choi had worked 18-hour days to make it happen. She had negotiated with skeptics and enemies, soothed ancient fears, and built bridges where walls had stood for millennia. Now she stood on the observation deck of the new compact headquarters, watching ships from 100 different species come and go in peace. Captain Taiho Park stood beside her, though he was captain no longer. The galaxy had given him a new title, Fleet Admiral of the Combined. peacekeeping force. Ships from 12 species now served under his command. Working together to protect the innocent instead of conquering them? Hard to believe, Yuna said softly. A year ago, they wanted to wipe us out. Now they ask us to lead them. We did not ask for leadership, Taiho reminded her. We only asked for equality. They chose to give us more, because they trust us. Yuna shook her head in wonder. After everything they did to us, after all the years of mockery, they trust us. Fear became respect. Respect became trust. Taiho smiled slightly. It is a strange path, but we have walked it. On the planet below, Admiral Sujin Lee was giving her final address before retirement. She stood before a crowd of millions, both human and alien, her white hair bright in the sunlight of a foreign star. Many have asked me why humanity hid for so long, she said. Why we pretended to be weak when we were strong. Why we endured insults and threats when we could have crushed those who opposed us. Looking out at the faces before her. Some were human. Some had scales or shells or crystal bodies. All were listening. The answer is simple. We hid our strength because we knew what power does to those who show it too soon. We had studied history, both our own and yours. We had seen how empires rise on force and fall to pride. We did not want to become another empire. We did not want to be feared. Her voice grew stronger. We wanted the galaxy to see us as kind first, patient first, willing to endure humiliation in the pursuit of something greater than conquest. She raised her hand toward the sky. We wanted to earn your respect, not demand it. And now at last, we have. The crowd erupted in cheers. Humans and aliens stood side by side, united in a way that would have been unthinkable a year ago. In the Velthari homeworld, things were different now. The warrior caste that had ruled for 10,000 years had fallen. A revolution, sparked by the shame of their defeat, had swept away the old ways. Where once Draal had commanded fleets of conquest, now he served as a diplomat, traveling between worlds to preach a message he had once mocked. Strength without mercy is just cruelty, he told crowds who had once cheered for human blood. The humans taught me this. They could have destroyed us. They chose to save us instead. We owe them a debt we can never repay except by becoming worthy of the mercy they showed. Across the galaxy, similar changes were taking place. Enslaved species found their freedom as oppressive empires crumbled. No human ship fired a weapon. No human soldier claimed territory. But everyone knew that Earth was watching. Everyone knew what would happen to those who tried to rebuild the old ways. Dr. Hanbeek, the scientist who had led Project Veil for 30 years, finally revealed its last secret. He stood before the new Galactic Science Council, surrounded by the greatest minds of 100 species. We have weapons, he said quietly, that could destroy stars. We developed them decades ago. They have never been used. They never will be. The aliens stared at him in shock. You could destroy stars? The Kreth representative asked, and you never even threatened to use this power? What would be the point? Hune asked. Destroying stars does not solve problems. It only creates new ones. We built these weapons as a last resort, a final option if all else failed. All else did not fail. Therefore, they will remain forever silent. He looked around the council chamber. This is the secret that humanity has carried for centuries. True power is not about what you can destroy. It is about what you can build, what you can protect, what you can create. He smiled sadly. We hope the galaxy will learn this lesson. We will wait as long as it takes. On New Busan, Governor Jisoo Yoon hosted the first anniversary celebration of the day that changed everything. 3 million humans gathered under the twin suns, joined by thousands of alien visitors who had come to see the colony that had faced death and found salvation. 1 year ago, Jisoo told the crowd, we stood in shelters beneath the ground, wondering if we would ever see daylight again. 1 year ago, an enemy fleet promised to burn our cities and murder our children. She smiled, and her smile held the warmth of someone who had faced the worst and survived. 1 year ago, humanity showed the galaxy what we truly are. Not conquerors. Not destroyers, but protectors, builders, friends. She raised her glass to the sky, to Earth, to humanity, to the galaxy we will build together. 3 million voices echoed her toast that night. Children across the galaxy learned a new saying. Parents told them stories about the humans, the strange species that had hidden among the stars for centuries, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. Why did they hide? The children asked. Because they wanted to be sure, the parents answered. They wanted to know if we deserved friends like them. And did we? The parents thought carefully before answering. Not at first, but they gave us a chance to become better. And now, perhaps, we finally are. In the centuries that followed, a proverb spread across every world, repeated by beings of every shape and form. It was said in 100 languages, but the meaning was always the same. Fear the species that smiles when you aim your weapons at them, for they know something you do not. The galaxy, once loud with mockery and war, had learned a new kind of silence. It was not the silence of fear. It was not the silence of defeat. It was the silence of respect. And in that silence, 1,000 species began to build something better together, something that would last far longer than any empire of conquest. They called it peace.